Welcome everyone to today's Flex webinar. I am your host, Marcus Merritt. Today we're going to be talking about a brand new feature, but one that has been requested for a very long time, scheduled maintenance. And we're going to review how to set it up and its usage. A couple of caveats I want to put on this. Just like a lot of things in Flex 5, this is a beta feature. Not beta because we don't think any of this works. What we have here works and works great. We think it's a great feature that again has been long requested, but it is our first shot, so we welcome feedback on that. If anybody have comments of ways to improve it or update it, change it to make things better for you, we welcome that feedback. Feel free to use the send feedback button at the top right of the screen. Also note that we're putting out to all of our customers for that kind of beta testing, but its availability may be subject to change. I don't have any other real information about that, just want to kind of share. So that's the quick thing I want to give on that, and with that we will go ahead and get started. Okay, for this, everybody should have got the update today. Your system would now be on 0.38 of it, which includes the implementation of the scheduled maintenance feature. At this link would go to the user manual of explaining it, but that's what I'm going to cover today, so we're not going to bother going to that. With that new thing, the first thing you have to do is turn it on. It does not it is not enabled by default. For that, you go to the main menu, inventory, and inventory settings. Now, for people more familiar with the settings, know that in Flex 4, there's already a bunch of settings in here, and we have not ported those over yet. So far, these two are just the extra things we've added. Those other ones will get ported and added into this menu, but this is only in Flex 5 that this works and displays. None of this is in Flex 4. But we want to put that out for testing for people. Mine is already to yes because I was setting it up earlier, but yours were default to no. So you would just need to change this to yes, and it automatically saves. There's no update button on this page. Okay, so just change the scheduled maintenance enabled to yes. Okay, with that, on your inventory items, you'll now have, that's not where I wanted to go. You'll now have remember what I was meaning to do. I'm going to just open this Mackie 1402. You'll have a new tab on your inventory items called Scheduled Maintenance, okay, where you'll have the ability to add maintenance procedures that you want done on a regular frequency, okay? Now, before I go and throw them in, I want to remind everyone that that's still your same maintenance procedures that we've discussed in the past for regular logging maintenance. This just has the ability to say, you said you want to do this on a regular basis. It hasn't been done. And so therefore we want to remind you to get that done. Okay. So for that reminder, in the main menu, inventory, and then maintenance procedures is where those procedures would be stored. So you may end up needing to add a new procedure related to this for those items. But as an example, in here in the past, when I did a log maintenance webinar, I just talked about motor certification, that we needed to do that yearly. And we put that in there, but there wasn't anything for it to remind me that it needed to get done. Now I can make it remind me to get it done, that, hey, this one has now not been, the time since it has. So I've got a bunch of ones in here, kind of as some examples on this. The one thing I'll say specifically is for UK and a lot of other European customers, they do this PAT testing, which is portable appliance testing. And that's a very common thing that they'll do on a regular basis, and they want to get that scheduled. And so that's a really big thing. A lot of our European customers have asked for this feature, but again, a lot of other places this can be really nice to do. Okay, so just remember, if you're in here, if you're editing it, you can either use the three-dot menu to edit or delete one. You can also just double click on one to be able to update those features and functionality, those settings on there. If you have an estimated completion time or cost, especially if it's something like a third party, like if I always take my motor certification to a third party, well, then I have an estimate of how long it takes for them to complete it and how much they're going to charge me for that. So I can kind of have that information in there. For a lot of the rest of these, it's going to vary and you're not going to have anything on them. Okay, so the way the maintenance procedures themselves don't work, it's just now the ability to schedule them to occur on a regular basis. Okay, so with that, on our Mackie here, let's go ahead in this and add some examples. So we just hit our little magnifying to go look through our list. And on this, I'm going to say I want to do that PAT testing as one. And so once I've added it, then I can say, what's the time? So I'm going to say this to be every 1 month, okay? Every 1 month. That's just for my example in my demo here. And I'm going to say that this one is required, that this item cannot go out the door if it has not had that testing within the last month, okay? But we can also put other ones. I could go in here and say, I'd also like to do a cleaning of it. And I want to do that every 1 month, but I'm not going to make that one required. Okay. One thing I want to highlight here, you'll see in the list of the frequencies where it says day, hour, month, week. This is pulling from all of the units of time that are in the system. We're not really expecting you to set up something on an hour recurring basis. It's just that it's one of the units of time that's in there. I think expecting mostly you're going to see a lot of months, but one thing to note, you cannot put decimals on the time. So if you decide you wanted to do something like every month and a half, then instead you would need to change that to days at 45 or weeks at 6 rather than that, okay? So we're going to just set this one again to be, oh, I thought I selected month. My hovering over there made it unhappy. That's why I say again, it's in a beta step. Oh, it really is unhappy with me. Let's force that to something else and then force it back. Okay, well, it's still saying there. Okay. It really didn't like my hovering over that for that long. Well, then we're gonna just change this one to say every 5 weeks for the moment. And we'll have to report back that issue and see. As we said, it's beta, but overall it should be working fairly well. Don't just sit and hover over it like I did for that long time. Probably be fine if I reload. Okay, so that key thing again, stating this one is not required, this one's required. This one's a, I'd like to do it. This one is no, you have to do it, okay? One other thing on specifically to that frequency that I want to mention, and I wanna go in here, is that I mentioned that motor certification. And so this one I say that I need to do this on a yearly basis. In that list, you won't see a yearly option, okay? And that's again because it's taking from the units of time that's in the system. And when we first created the system, we weren't expecting, those units of time are based on rental periods. We weren't expecting people to rent out things in years. And so that wasn't a time that was added in there, and those are hard coded. That's something we intend to fix, but for the moment, if it's something you need to do on a yearly basis, you just need to say every 12 months. Not that difficult, but I just want to say at the moment, we cannot have it say years. That is something we intend to fix, okay? So that's the key in that. Pretty simple, straightforward. You just open the items and update what you want to have on them, decide the frequency and what time, and then what if they're required or not, okay? Once we've done that, then it enables a few specific things, okay? Couple things that I want to show in that it's going to stop you from doing things if it has not had that maintenance that has been required or potentially not required, okay? For example here, just to show on this serial unit, I'm going to go here and open this item, and you'll see similarly on the item now there's the scheduled maintenance. And it looks at it and says, well, this is when I want to have had these things, and this is red because these dates are in the past. It knows whether it's required or not. It gives me a quick way that I'm like, oh, I went all the way to look here. I guess I better go grab that item and log the maintenance on it and actually do that maintenance there. So it gives me a quick way to take care of that. But that's the key. Now, the one thing I want to highlight in this, as you can kind of see here on this 3.1, if we go to the maintenance log, there's never been maintenance on this item. So what the logic that it does is it first looks at the last time that maintenance was completed. If that maintenance has not been tagged on this item, then it goes and looks for a purchase date on the item and looks for that and would go based on that. If you just barely bought the item, you just don't, and you're saying one every month, well, you don't need to do it for the first month, okay? But if you didn't put a purchase date, then it's going to find the added date or the date you created the unit in the system, and it will choose by that, okay? So every item has some kind of basis for what it does for its assumption. Obviously, once you've logged the first one, then it's just going to continue from there. But you see on this, I never logged any maintenance, but I put that it was purchased on February 1st, And so here it says that was due on March 1st, which is in the past, and I haven't done it, so it is past due. Okay, so that's kind of that key there. With that, it will then provide a couple options in stopping. So in a first example, I want to show on a different one. I'm going to go to a case. So I'm going to put away. A lot of people use the serialized storage. You're going to put away your items. So I have this case for these 932s, and I have in here that I need to do some kind of QC on these on a regular basis. Okay, needs to be done in here. Okay, so I'm going to go to scan in one of my 932s, 035, and you see that it's going to pull up that says it has QC testing that was required, that it's past due, that it actually thinks this was supposed to be done last July and I haven't done it. You're like, well, yeah, because the world's not been really going regularly, so we haven't done it. But I want to have this go out the door. And so I need to do it. You see here, I cannot scan it because it is required, okay? I can click to log the maintenance. It's gonna pop up that screen, so I can throw that in, update that information, and then that will let me scan it. But if I don't do that, it's not going to let me scan it, okay? So that's the first thing there, okay? The next, then instead, if I go, here, and we're going to go to our warehouse and our prep pull sheet. And I have my scheduled maintenance demo here. So on this one, I can go here to say, okay, well, I'm going to go scan. Oh, I need to double check. Oh, no, it's this 124. We're going to go to scan 00124, that Mackie in here. And again, it's going to pull up, hey, you have these past due maintenance. Now, this one is not required. This one is required. So on this, I'm going to go in here and say that I did this. Obviously, I don't really have it here. I'm not really doing it. I don't recommend you, say you didn't do it if you didn't actually do it. One real quick thing here I want to kind of as a tangent mention. I've talked about this some in the past with different results, but we've kind of discussed this more internally as we've been developing this feature. And we feel like a big improvement. So in the past, I've mentioned on procedures, things like third-party testing or whatever. And I built one like for say QC damage confirmed and QC damage not confirmed. And we've realized that that's kind of excessive in your procedure listing. Because on this, our PAT testing is our procedure, or our QC testing, or whatever we want to call it, our cleaning, our preventative maintenance, okay? And then our summary is kind of our result of what has occurred. So in this case, all we really need to maybe say is passed, okay? It passed my testing, okay? Versus, oh, if we had another one and it failed, well, if it failed, then we'd probably mark it as out of commission and we wouldn't want to send it. But in this case, we're going to say we actually did it and it passed. Okay. One important thing on this that is a minor update, it's been done a little bit in the past, but it is kind of new, that in the past it always put the service date as the day you're putting it in, and it will still default to that. But if for some reason you did the service on a different day, or maybe that you sent it to a third party and that recertification happened and then they had to ship it back to you, and so it was actually 2 or 3 days earlier, you can update that date to match that if necessary. We're going to assume that was right when I had here, and the rest of this is fine. This didn't have any cost for us, whatever, so we're just going to go ahead and add that, okay? With that, that one's going to be good. This one still is past due, but because we said it is not required, I can go ahead and bypass and scan that. I can go, I'm not going to take the time to clean it. We're in a rush, but I did go ahead and PAT test it, make sure we got that safety. We'll clean it later, okay? The one other, and I did not prep this to display right, but we did make sure to test. If I, like we showed on that, scanning into the case, if I scan something into the case, and at the time I scanned it into the case, it was good. It was proper on having its availability. But then by the time I went to the show, I scanned that case onto the show, and that item inside the case is now past due maintenance. It will give you a pop-up to tell you this case has an item inside it that has past due maintenance, and it won't let you go forward without again logging the maintenance and fixing that. Okay, so I just want to kind of highlight that information in the same way. Okay, so that's sort of the key, that it's going to tag that if you're trying to send it out the door. Now, one thing I will state as a caveat is it checks basically on the ship out date. If this is said the item is scheduled for regular maintenance and it's not past due by the time this show goes out the door, it's not a problem. But if it's 3 or 4 days out and this is a long show, it's a tour, then it's not going to check that. It's too much of a hard to make the logic on that, because A, you're going to have frequently where that's just not going to happen, and B, where sometimes people are going to change those dates, and that's going to cause a thing. So right now it's mostly just on by the time it gets out the door. We can discuss updates and upgrades to that in the future, but I do want to highlight that caveat in it. Okay, and so that's kind of the basic of the feature, is that ability to throw the maintenance on and then have that flag you if you didn't remember to do that. Now, the other main thing with this is there are a few new reports in your system that are there to help remind you and keep on top of this. So it's not just every time you go to send the item, you're like, oh, I haven't pat tested this. But you can run reports to kind of keep that up to date. Okay, so in your report section, you'll see 3 new reports under scheduled maintenance. There's the overview report, the past due report, and the upcoming report. And I'll go ahead and throw one of each of those on so we can kind of see. So the overview is just a way to remind yourself, what is the scheduled maintenance that I have set on these items? You'll see that you can run them by inventory group if you're only concerned about your department or one section, or you can do the whole thing. If you don't change this to sort by procedure, then it supports by the inventory hierarchy. So it's the sort by procedure is more where like I'm the guy who does this specific procedure, so I'd rather they sort that way rather than I'm the audio department lead and I want to just focus on seeing audio, that sort of way. Okay, but it works either way, just depending on what you set there. With that, I'm just going to go ahead and run that. Well, I did not test that this morning because it's been tested in the past. We're going to make one more attempt here on this. We're going to set the location and see if that, no. Okay, well, that's a little bit of a problem. That was my bad on that testing that. We will circle back to that one in a minute. Let's see if the other ones will run at all. So the past due is designed in a fairly simple way. It's just going to look at anything that is past due that's going to come up that and tell you. Again, you can sort by inventory group. The one thing is you can say, do I want to include items currently out? If they're currently out the door, you don't generally have your hands on them, but it might be where you do tours or things where you actually say, I go and get those items and kind of cycle them with different things. So you may want to include that. Okay, I'm going to set the location and we will see if these actually run. No. Okay, well, that's a big bad on my testing. Well, we're going to pop over to a different system so I can show what these look like with a little bit of mess data, and then we will check what's going on and make sure to get that fixed. I tested everything else in that. I didn't bother to run the reports. And this, and just real quick on this upcoming, we are, it's the same thing where you can set basically a, hey, we've got, you know, it's a little bit of time. I want to just look ahead and say what's supposed to happen in the near future, maybe over the next month and a little bit, and see what's potentially scheduled to come up. And I'll just be like, oh, let's just, you know, be proactive and get on it and take care of it on this. There. And yeah, I didn't expect it to work anyway. Okay. You know, one thing I'm going to test really quick. I'm just minorly curious about this. I'm going to log out. I'm going to check if this has something to do with the permission thing, and I'm going to switch to my support user. Just in case. Shouldn't be the issue, but we're gonna do a quick test. Okay, I don't need that. And nope. Okay, so real quick, so I can demo these reports. Oops. Dev. We're going to give you a little behind the scenes. This system is always generally a mess because people name things kind of whatever because they're just testing to make sure it happens. So I don't expect there to be anything offensive, but I do expect there to be weird names in this. A lot of weird names and weird organization. But I want to throw something up here for the moment, and then we will clean up this video for the YouTube version later. No, I don't need that. And so reports. So overview report. Okay. The key in this is reminded of the main, it's just listing the items and what is on there. It says this one's supposed to have cleaning every 1 hour required, right? We can have items down here this is the same item, but it says it's supposed to have a firmware update, a repair, and a software update. All of those are supposed to be related. Like I said, a lot of weird names, not really appropriate items, but it still shows kind of what it's going to display. And it organizes that based on the hierarchy if we don't do by the other sorting. For that past due, and this will actually then put serial units. Just on that one, it was only the models and what they're set for. That's just your way to review. What do we have set up in there? Do I need to add something? Do I need to remove something? On this, and let's go ahead and say yes, include items currently out. This one instead is going to remind us every single unit that is past due maintenance. So you're going to find some items where there's a whole bunch of items in this. There's a whole bunch of these Brandon's Harton stuff that need to be maintained, need to have that test on them. Okay. In this one is currently being organized. It says these are all cleaning. So everything in this section is a need for cleaning that may or may not be required for it and on there. So it kind of lists it that way. Okay. All of that. If we then go down, this is actually very long because they put a lot of this into the testing. Then we hit to another point where that's firmware update. And here's all of the different items that need the firmware update. Okay. Obviously on that, everything is assumed to be past due. And then in the upcoming, again on that, I can go in and pick the date range that I'm looking for and generate that. And so we see here that say, oh, well, these things are scheduled to have a cleaning on the 18th of March, which is in that time frame that I looked at. You know, these ones are supposed to have cleaning. Oh, just really soon here. Well, maybe that'd be a good thing to go find those items and get those cleaned and just get those updated right now because I have some time. So that there. You do see in here that it's listing that last service date. These are ones that had never had it. But they were added to the system basically based on the maintenance where that's the correct time. These ones had it recently and they're supposed to do it again here soon. Okay, so that's kind of that information on those reports. I didn't get it put into the system, but there is one new report that is not in there yet, but will be soon, of an updated one where you can run it against a show. So if you have that long-term show, that tour, or that long rental where they say, hey, we need to extend this, you can have a chance to run a report against it and know, hey, are there things that really should be maintained? And you can make that call of, sure, but I want to switch out a couple of these items so that you have ones that have been more recently tested, more recently QC'd, et cetera. So that's kind of the main information with that. And so with that, we will move to Q&A for this feature. Oh. First question, Vasco Lopez says, does the frequency start the date on the calendar year or on the day the maintenance procedure was created? It's going to be based, so you're saying as far as the frequency, it doesn't have anything to do with when the maintenance procedure was created. It's looking back at the item and either saying, okay, when was the last time this maintenance procedure was completed on this item? Is it going to the next date on that? Okay, looking forward to, if you said month, was that done within a month? If it's over a month. If there'd been no maintenance, then instead it comes back and says that when was the item purchased in the system? When was it purchased? And it's going to look at that for the frequency. Okay. If you didn't fill in the purchase date, then it goes based on when the item was created or added to the system. Does the availability track to factor in overdue required scheduled maintenance? I believe no. It's not going to assume those items are not available on that. It's not going to say because the scheduled maintenance has not been done, but it will stop you from sending them out. And so, yeah, that is a potential thing to have to discuss if that scheduled maintenance takes too much time. And my biggest comment is if you're worried about that, once we fix those reports, which I'm hearing specifically that there's a small patch that has to go to make those reports work, that will be happening next week, that you would run that past due maintenance report or even the upcoming maintenance report on a regular basis to stay on top of them so you don't get caught unaware in that kind of way. Because yeah, at the moment it doesn't change their availability. It's just going to flag you that you said you needed to do that scheduled maintenance. Drew Edwards asks, can you base the scheduled maintenance for every time the item is returned, not by time? Not currently, but that is a functionality we have discussed adding, that yes, that it's every X amount of times it is used, then we need to have it properly QC'd or cleaned or whatever, but not currently. So yes, that is a thing we've discussed as a potential thing, but for the moment, we've just done it on the regular, time-based frequency. Kevin Sherwood, which I know is actually Andrew, we said earlier, are there new permission settings available to restrict changes to scheduled maintenance? I believe they're going to be connected to whether or not someone has the ability. So to change maintenance on an inventory item, you'd have to have the ability to edit inventory or manage inventory. To run a maintenance procedure, you have to have the procedure, the ability to manage maintenance. So it's going to be fairly connected to what people already have, but there are not currently new permissions. They're connected to existing permissions. There is a plan at a point later to do a major overhaul of the permissions, and that will reanalyze and see if we need to update some of this and separate it out. But right now they're just attached to regular existing permissions. And just as kind of a note here, if I go on this, so it should be that, I don't know why it's being so slow. If I want to edit where I can, I have to be able to manage inventory to change what is a set scheduled maintenance procedure. And if I want to run a maintenance, because it's not different than running it, it's just letting me know, I have to can manage maintenance procedures. Are there any additional questions? But no, some very good questions there. Like we said, again, this is, first kind of adding of this feature and this functionality, but it's something that has been requested for a long time. So we're really excited to be able to add this to the system and help people have that information in there, have that option on that. We're very much welcome feedback and welcome comments. We'll look into those other options. I do like, again, that option, Drew, of on frequency of item. We've discussed that in the past, but in this first pass through, we just did the regular of, what's more commonly is people saying every 3 months, every 6 months, every year, I need to do this certain kind of testing or certification of these items. Really good. Well, if there aren't any additional questions, then thanks everyone for the time here. 1 sec, let's go back. Thanks everyone for being here. As always, if you have additional questions, you can reach out to support@flexrentalsolutions.com or training@flexrentalsolutions.com. And as always, you can go to helpcenter.flexrentalsolutions.com for our user manual for look to help answer those questions. Thank you and have a great day.